Alright, how's everybody doing? So, today I want to talk about Ash. Ash, in my opinion, has been, for a very long time, one of the most underrated Warframes. I think he's used by very few players now that I've always thought that, and that's kind of confirmed by the metrics that DE released. So why? Is Ash good or is Ash bad? I think when people look at Ash, they see a stealth frame. They see smokescreen. They see, wow, that has a really low duration. Why don't I just play Loki or Avara or, better yet, Octavia or Wukong, who are usually just better at a lot of the things you want stealth frames to do? Well, I would make the argument that smokescreen for Ash is really just kind of a side utility, and he's more of a damage frame. I think Ash is really, really underutilized in terms of damage. So one build. So this is probably going to be a long video. I'm going to put timestamps just so you can skip between builds if you want. One build that's pretty standard Ash. So this is very similar to the Shinobi Ash build that Relentless Zen put out a few months ago. So this is your classic duration, stealth, augment on your one for full armor strip. And this is all about, a lot of utility mods, um, really about staying in stealth, stripping armor when you have to, and utilizing Ash's very, very strong passive, which buffs any slash damage that you do. And this is slash damage from, so bleed would be slash damage from either weapons or your abilities. So that means that Ash takes one of the best statuses in the game, potentially the best DPS status, and just cranks it up to an insane level. So he is absolutely fantastic with something like a Nakana with a very heavy slash build. So this is like a viral build. I should probably actually have lower viral here. So he's absolutely fantastic with that type of weapon. Now, that's like the standard Ash. Now there's a couple builds that I've been using, and I've just been having so much fun with Ash. They're both Helminth builds. One of them uses Marked for Death. The other one uses Banshee's Silence. And so a lot of people freaked out about Marked for Death Ash when Helminth first launched. So Ash has this augment where he does extra damage on teleports, and you'll perform an auto finisher. So that's a really cool augment. This has had some niche use cases in the past, such as index farming, or being like a damage dealer for high index runs, because this will, with the right weapon, this will basically kill anything in the game. This does like hilarious amounts of damage, and the extra damage does scale with strength. It has a crazy long range, very, very cheap energy wise. That's another thing I love about Ash, is he is very, very cheap on energy, which is very nice. However, it can be combined with Mark for Death, and before Mark for Death got nerfed, it was, kind of hilarious. You'd take a Fragger Prime, you'd be doing 1 billion damage to everybody, and, it just kind of cheesed the game. So Mark for Death got nerfed, and everybody wrote off Mark for Death, right? Okay, Mark for Death is dead. There's no point ever running Mark for Death, right? So I'm just going to get my growing power proc here. So Mark for Death is terrible, right? No reason to run Mark for Death. Okay, so what the hell's going on? I'm using a rapier. Rapiers are the only weapon in the game that have a forced slash proc when you do a finisher. So this means now you can do two different approaches here. You can run Blood Rush, however, that means you're maintaining combo count. Honestly, I found that this was way more than enough damage to kill like basically anything, since you're applying slash. So I actually dropped Blood Rush. And the other nice thing about this is that it can effectively function like a heavy attack build when you need it to. So for example, like I was running a Kuva Flood, and honestly, this build is way overkill for a Kuva Flood. You're just gonna insta-kill most things in there anyways, but one of those like treasure guys popped in a Corpus ship mission, and they're immune. You cannot use finishers on some enemies, so I couldn't use Fatal Teleport on it, but I just heavy attacked with my rapier, boom, dead. That also lets me run Zenuric. I really don't like running Blood Rush if I can't run Naramon. And just running Zenuric really lets you, because your energy costs with a decent amount of efficiency are pretty low, just your energizing dash. So just energizing dash is pretty much enough to keep your energy up. Almost to the point where you probably don't even need energize for this build, honestly. It's probably overkill. So, primary and secondary, those are just preference. I really like this sniper for some reason. I don't know why. Spirit Prime, I mostly just took this because it is a throwing weapon, so it's silent, kind of nice with stealth. It's also a pretty decent secondary. It's got pretty nice stats, actually. And it looks really cool with the Limbo Deluxe skin. So, I'll go over the Ash build and the Rapier build. So, for the aura, you can go Steel Charge if you want to. You could also definitely get put an aura Forma or Forma this slot. You know, a lot of the auras I've been using lately, like Brief Respite, really nice for resetting shield gating. Enemy Radar, I mean, even Energy Siphon might be good on this. Corrosive Projection is kind of so-so with this build. You are doing like basically all slash damage, so reducing armor isn't really going to be super valuable. I'd probably only go Steel Charge if I really needed the capacity. I think you're going to get way more damage from the extra ability strength because that's going to bump up both your marked for death damage and the extra fatal teleport damage. So onto the build. So I run some duration. So this build has pretty low duration for Ash. So your smoke screen doesn't last for a whole like super long time. But it actually I thought this was going to be really annoying. But in practice, when I was actually using this in Steel Path missions, it was actually kind of nice because Ash's smokescreen does a stagger in a pretty large area if you have enough range. So it was actually kind of nice, like good amount of CC, and it's very cheap. I mean, it's only 8 energy. So you really didn't mind using this. I mean, you can look at it, this is basically 1 energy per second, effectively. And when you think about it that way, it's really not too bad. So running, I didn't want to run overextended because it was very difficult. I tried running overextended for kind of maximum range, but it was very difficult to have overextended with enough strength to not gimp your combo. Primed flow for extra energy, maximum efficiency, just because I found that to be the easiest. I tried running this without fleeting, so only 130% efficiency, which gave me much more duration. But because you're just spamming it, like you're basically only using abilities with this build. You never like really attack. So I found that it was much easier just to have maximum efficiency. I really liked Arcane Strike because that increased your finisher animation. So you can kind of run whatever here. One mod that I probably would want to fit into this build. So this is kind of like a feel thing. Like I've gotten used to on stealth frames, honestly, not really even needing rolling guard because you can just, you have that 1 second of grace time in your when you're casting your stealth. When you come out of stealth, you have like a second where enemies won't detect you. So I used to run rolling guard religiously on Ash. I mean, it's not needed quite as much. If I was going to cut something, I would probably, forma this to maybe Naramon polarity, um, or maybe, maybe drop the strength because it might not be needed, but that might impact your Mark for Death combo. You could maybe drop Flow, although Ash has pretty low energy. But since you're running max efficiency, that's potentially an option. So I might do something like this, right? Which actually I think, yeah. So I might do something like that. That might be viable. But once again, pretty low energy, so it's kind of a feel thing. I've been running this without Rolling Guard, even in Steel Path, and it's been fine. You just got to be careful. I would say you need Rolling Guard more if you're in a group, because then there's a chance that enemies are shooting at your allies, which aren't invisible, and you accidentally get hit. That can definitely happen. So the Rapier build, I just went corrosive, kind of, max damage. You could also go viral here. It honestly doesn't matter. It's more about the raw damage. Sacrificial Steel, I kind of already gave the rationale. You could definitely run Blood Rush. That's, that would be the maximum damage is running Blood Rush, but I was just running Sacrificial Steel and not having to worry about combo at all was more than enough to do, well into Steel Path. So I figured, hey, why bother worrying about it? Prime Pressure Point for that upfront damage. If you wanted to get really crazy, you could run Condition Overload, but that kind of gets a little weird with Marked for Death sometimes. So I just went for the most upfront damage, threw on Gladiator Might and a Finishing Touch for that extra finisher damage. I can show this again. It's not really too much to it. So one of the reasons I like using a sniper is I find it really useful to be able to scope in on an enemy, and then so if your casting animation on Marked for Death is actually very, very, very fast. So you can Mark for Death and just spam teleport, and you will immediately go over there. And if you do it quick enough, it kind of solves some of like the targeting issues with Marked for Death. One of the things I find that's annoying is I'll Mark for Death an enemy, and then I teleport to the wrong enemy. And so I actually found running a sniper to be pretty useful, to just be, Mark for Death, spam teleport, boom. Now, my growing power hasn't procced yet, so you can see that I didn't instantly one-shot all these enemies. But I did apply a slash proc. And since slash procs are so strong on Ash, those slash procs are basically going to kill everything. So you honestly don't even really need to hyper focus on, oh, I need to be getting my Marked for Death on the biggest enemy. Not really super necessary. Because you're applying, you can almost view this as like, applying a ton of slash procs. Like that's really the point of the build. It's not so much a Marked for Death initial nuke combo build. But, I think that Ash looks super, super cool. I actually love this Fashionframe. It's probably one of my favorite Fashionframes that I run. So yeah, that's Marked for Death. Now another build, and this build is very, very entertaining to me. So this one has much more duration, less range, and less efficiency. And this is a Bladestorm build. So recently Bladestorm got buffed, and Bladestorm is kind of an interesting ability. And a lot of people think Bladestorm is pretty bad. I would say that in large part, Bladestorm is one of the most misunderstood abilities in the game. So you almost need to look at Bladestorm like a pseudo-exalted weapon. And when I say that, I don't mean that it's scaling off of your weapon's mods. I mean that it requires almost the same amount of support as a pseudo-exalted weapon. So when I say that, I mean you kind of need a stat stick. So for that, I run Venka Prime, and there's a reason for this. So I like Vermilion Storm for building up combo. I like the combo attacks in there. So I have Glad mods. Don't worry about that. I just kind of use this as like a catch-all stat stick for a few different builds. The really important thing is combo duration. So lots of combo duration, and then all the attack speed mods. So this should really be Primed Fury. I don't have Primed Fury. So why the attack speed mods? So one, they help you build up combo count faster, because that's the only point of this build on Venka Prime. You take Venka Prime, you combine it with Naramon, And so for anybody who doesn't know, Power Spike in Naramon makes it so instead of your combo counter for melee just going away after the timer runs out, it'll just decrease by 5 every couple seconds. Now, your combo duration on your melee weapon will get added to that couple seconds. So instead of decreasing by 5 every 2 seconds, it's decreasing by 5 every 35 seconds. So I've gone entire missions before where once I build up to that 13x combo, and that's why Venka Prime is very, 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 very nice for this, because you can immediately build up to a 13x combo. So let me just build it up really quick here. Now there is a simulacrum bug where sometimes you're, let me see, oh no, I should actually be in there, man. Okay, yeah, I mean Venka Prime is so stupid that I'm actually killing enemies with this just a build for for my combo duration. Anyways, so one really nice thing about Venka Prime is because you're at a 13x. Now, everything in the game only actually scales up to a 12x combo counter. Blood Rush, Weeping Wounds, all that stuff, those only actually scale up to 12x. However, if you have a normal melee, so you see as soon as it ticked down, I immediately went from 13x to 12x, right? So if you had any other melee, it would go from 12 to 11 right away. But because Venka Prime has this extra combo level, it makes it you can maintain 12x basically without thought. Much, 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 much easier. Okay, now, I guess I'll just use this build while we're out here. So I see it's ticking down again, but I still have it. Okay, so I'm going to use Silence. Now, Bladestorm did get some changes. So in the past, you would enter this targeting mode. So if you look at my 4 ability, so there's that sound effect. Now the screen is like a little darker, and I have a number there, right? So I'm going to start going over enemies, and see they get these little marks over their heads, and I get a number on my 4 ability, right? So in the past, you would have to apply 3 of these marks to enemies, or you could apply 3 of these marks to enemies. Now 1 tag of Bladestorm just applies 3 marks. I think it's definitely like nice quality of life. I think it's a little annoying because your clones that you send out will still trigger 3 attacks. So it would be nice if that damage was just condensed into 1 attack. One reason would just be it's more efficient, it's faster. Another reason is it would be way easier to trigger arcanes that trigger off of a finisher kill. So that's another important thing, is that Ash's 4, those attacks count as finishers. So, alright, now these guys do have viral, which I do run this pet in missions, so this is kind of more representative of what it would actually be like. So now I'm going to release my 4, send my clones out, and these enemies are just going to take massive, massive damage. Now, that was the upfront damage of this ability. If we go look at Bladestorm, so it does an initial slash damage, and then another thing to mention is that all of those attacks, that was just 1 clone. Those enemies would all get attacked 2 more times for that much damage. And then on top of that, they would have a bleed that would do a massive amount of damage. So even with a pretty low amount of strength, this thing does so much damage that it will basically do the effective HP pool of like a nearly max level corrupted heavy or a heavy gunner. It's just insane the amount of damage that this does. And I barely have any strength on this build. I could easily be running more strength. I was running transient fortitude, but honestly I was like, I didn't need the strength at all, so I was like, okay, well I might as well just keep have more duration. And another thing that's crazy about this build is it scales like nuts with strength, right? So your Bladestorm is doing more base damage, and now we get to the Helminth edition, your Silence Augment is scaling with strength as well. So Savage Silence. Finisher damage is increased by 300% while silence is active. That means that enemies don't need to be actively stunned by silence to take the extra finisher damage. So silence is like another kind of wonky ability where when it creates this aura around you. So one thing it does is it suppresses gunfire. Another thing is that when enemies first enter the aura, they will get stunned for like just a second. So you don't need to do the finisher while they're stunned. All you need is for silence to be active, which makes this a lot better. So, I have, a little bit of range, so just to go over the mod. So a lot of duration. So why do I have a lot of duration? Bladestorm gets a pretty 50% cost 50% less energy when you're in stealth. Also, stealth is your primary defensive in this build. So it was just way easier. So this, as opposed to the other build, this one I like to stay in stealth a little longer because I'm setting up Bladestorm over a longer period of time. I'm not really spamming a marked for death teleport combo. So it was just a lot nicer to have that longer duration smokescreen. Also, you're getting some decent CC from silence. Not a whole ton of strength. I mean, honestly, you don't need any extra strength on this build. I kind of just had an open slot here. I could probably just throw in Rolling Guard in this slot. So Prime Flow for the energy. I am running Energize. If you make energy pads or something, or one other thing you could do is you could put Preparation. Whoopsies, that is the wrong slot. You could put Preparation in the slot, so that could actually be pretty nice because you don't really need the range that much. It doesn't really do like a whole ton for you. It's really just for the silence CC. That's really the only thing. So you could run Preparation. That could be nice. It's nice with Primed Flow. So Arcane Strike, final thing, and why I have these speed mods is the animation of Bladestorm. The speed at which your clones do their finisher attacks scales off of your melee weapon's attack speed, except for Berserker, because Berserker is a buff that's put on your frame. So, and this goes for any finisher attack. Finisher attack animations will scale off of all of your speed mods, including, for some reason it works with Arcane Strike, but it doesn't work with Berserker. That's just kind of how it is. So, this is kind of your stat stick, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I'll just, I'll show this one more time. Oh, I have Preparation on. So another reason why snipers are nice is you can use a sniper as a kind of poor man's Mesa. And this is why a little range is actually kind of nice on this build. And so yeah, I'll just send my clones out into the world. Now, I don't have any combo counter build up. So this is another point, is that your Bladestorm will scale off your melee combo counter. However, even with 0 combo counter, because it does a whole ton of slash damage, I'm still basically one-shotting all of them. Like, I don't need to use the ability again. Now I'm gonna go build up my combo meter. So I love Vermilion Storm because it's got these nice spin attacks and you hit a lot of enemies. Okay, so yeah, all right. And there you go. So I'm actually gonna go real quick, take this build into Steel Path. Yeah, so I'll take this one into Steel Path just because I feel like people are more used to seeing a marked for death Ash, so I feel like those videos have been done ad nauseum. Really the only addition there is, how good a rapier is with that build. Let me set this to solo. So overall, I think Ash is a way better frame than people give him credit for. On top of that, you can just build the guy for a ton of duration and just use him like a stealth frame. Like that's totally fine. But I do feel like using Ash only for stealth is kind of a disservice to how strong he can be, because he can do absolutely absurd amounts of damage. I would almost argue that Ash has some of the highest damage potential in the entire game. He is honestly criminally underutilized. Okay, so we got some Steel Path dudes here. Okay. Alright, now we're on Steel Path, and they're still taking, 350,000 damage. Now the main complaint about Bladestorm builds is that they're really slow, right? However, I took Ash into Steel Path, and I was able to maintain around 1,000 kills per minute with both the Marked for Death and the Bladestorm builds. Now, like I said, it takes setup, it takes support to run Bladestorm Ash. If you're not running a weapon with like a crap ton of attack speed, you just shouldn't really be using the ability. It's just gonna be super clunky. You're not gonna kill things quickly, stuff like that. However, if you do have the support that it needs, it is a crazy damage ability. Also, you can join in to your Bladestorm and become one of the clones, which this is actually kind of useful, because now instead of 2 clones going out there doing attacks, you do count as an additional attacker, so it will finish the animations more quickly. One thing that can happen with that though is you can kind of be out of stealth when you come in, or when you end the animation, and it can you can sometimes die. There's also nothing against you just like throwing out a bunch of Bladestorms and then using your normal melee attacks. You don't have to go so crazy with your melee weapon. Like, I also use this particular melee weapon with Baruch to maintain the Glad set, so that's part of the reason why I use this build. Now, I'm not saying that this build is perfect. I'm not saying that Ash is like a perfect Warframe by any stretch of the imagination. I do think that Ash could still use a little, some tweaks. I think, because basically once you've marked an enemy, there's basically no way to unmark them. Like, you're gonna attack them. Once you've marked them, they're gonna get attacked by Bladestorm, right? So I feel like it would just make way more sense with the current state of Warframe, with how fast-paced the game is right now. I feel like it would make way more sense if, as soon as you hit Ashes 4 and you were tagging enemies, especially now that you can only tag them once, why not have your clones just start attacking right away? I mean, yeah, I could see where this might turn into a really degenerate, overpowered version of Mesa, but Ash is barely played, so why not give it a shot and see how it goes? I really wish DE would be a little more adventurous in like changes that they make to Warframes. Honestly, the worst part about this Bladestorm build is frankly that it's kind of too strong. Like you're gonna kill anything with this, right? Like pretty much max level Steel Path guys are gonna get one shot by this build. And so another thing, I am running the Panzerwelt Pfeila for that spread viral damage. Now you could see there, where an enemy got attacked and I didn't have silence up, and they only took like 60,000 damage or something. So silence really is adding a crazy amount of damage. So I really like that interaction. That's a really nice interaction. It adds like a whole nother element to this build, because it really, if you think about it, Savage Silence basically does for this build what the Whipclaw augment does for Korra, where in the past you really had to stack a lot of strength on Ash to run Bladestorm and have it actually kill enemies. Now Savage Silence buffs your Bladestorm so much that you don't need to run all that extra strength. You have the mod space to run duration, to run other stats, and that's awesome. That makes the build way easier to build around, much easier to use. So yeah, overall, with the little buff that Bladestorm Ash got in one of the recent patches, I'd say it's a really fun build right now. Like I said, the only downside is that it's kind of too strong. You can just sit in stealth and, you know, just tag enemies and they just die. So yeah, that's kind of it. I try to like attack stuff with my ranged weapons just to feel like I'm, you know, doing something. It almost has an Octavia like problem where it just kills stuff too well almost. So I'm just gonna get out of this mission. I will show Mark for Death. So once again, sorry this is a pretty long video. I really just wanted to showcase all these Ash builds. Because like I said, I really think Ash is just so incredibly underrated. So let me just switch to my Rapier. Switch to my Marked for Death build. Oop, there we go. And then I am running the Panzer Vulpaphyla just because Ash is all about slash damage, and the Panzer Vulpaphyla is just vomiting out viral stacks and everything. So that's absolutely perfect. And then since you're stealthed, not a huge chance that your Panzer Vulpaphyla is going to die. So they're a little more durable by nature. One mod that I might run on Ash for both of these builds, just because you really want to be aware of enemy positioning. If you find that your Kavat or your Vulpaphyla is dying really frequently, you might think about running some kind of enemy radar. That's definitely an option. So, okay, here we go. All right, everything's gonna die. Tag this guy, boom, dead. So they're all gonna die from the slash damage. Now, one interesting thing is that a lot of Grenier. So, one of the nerfs that Marked for Death got was that it can only do damage based off of how much damage you actually do to an enemy's health. So a lot of times you will actually do more AoE damage if you target an unarmored enemy, because they tend to have higher health sometimes. So they have lower effective health, but they have higher raw health. And that's something you'll just get a feel for. And so yeah, I find this is a little more. I personally find this a little more fun than the Bladestorm build, just because it's pretty active. You know, definitely just as effective. And frankly, I just find it so awesome to be like Ash is the ninjiest space ninja. Let's be real. Ash is the only frame in this whole game that is actually a space ninja, right? So it's definitely nice to give Ash a little love. I love Ash. I think he's super fun. I never ever see other people play Ash, which kind of blows my mind because he really is like so good. I might die. No, alright, I'm good. He really is like so good in my opinion. Okay, see, there we go. There he is. Okay, so Mark for Death does have like an after visual, so I'm gonna Mark for Death this guy, so you can tell who has your Mark for Death by this kind of drippy this guy's got going on. So that is one a kind of annoying thing that can happen, is you teleport to the wrong target. But yeah, so you know, Mark for Death Ash is definitely alive and well. Yeah, if people tell you Ash is bad just because Mark for Death got nerfed, I definitely think that they're wrong. Now, is this as insane as the original Mark for Death? No. Is this the best build in the entire game? Absolutely not. Is it a fun build that's also effective on, you know, the most ninja-like Warframe? Yeah, I think so. I mean, you can it's kind of overkill for like normal missions, but it's really going to excel in more difficult missions. And it's pretty much guaranteed to scale because it scales with enemy health. Basically, your nuke is going to scale with enemy HP. And then if you get into like really, really, really crazy content, or really crazy high level stuff, then you would bust out the blades, or not Bladestorm. Then you would use like the Blood Rush build on your Destreza rather than the Sacrificial Steel build that I'm running. Once you get into like the flow of things, you need to worry about your energy a lot less, because you're killing enemies in such huge packs that you don't really need to worry about it as much. But you kind of get the feel for it. So yeah. So these are the Ash builds I've been running. I have found him to be very, very enjoyable. Oh god, I love that feeling of like when you look at the mini map and there's just all these enemies and you do this combo and boom, they're just all gone. It just feels so good. Just huge, huge, huge damage. Oh god, just look at that. Just look at that. So yeah, anyways, that's enough about this. Um, so hopefully, you learned a little bit about Ash. You got a couple cool builds. If you have any more questions about Ash, or if I forgot anything, I'll try to add it to the comments. Overall, I think Ash is just super cool. I'll throw the fashion up here using the Koga set. Yeah, so if you have any feedback on this or anything, it's always welcome. Hope you enjoy playing Ash, and hope you have a good day. Thanks for watching.